You didn't want to have that conversation because if you knew just based on life experience that somebody could potentially catch feelings or whatever, but then you also didn't take the time to have that conversation, you're being selfish and greedy, and you're being careless with the other person's emotions. And I'd venture to say that you didn't particularly care for that person. You liked what they gave you, but not that person. Sometimes the problem isn't that nobody said what the relationship was. It's that both people were allowed to keep taking from it as if they understood it in the same way. One person hears daily calls, intimacy, emotional support, consistency, and thinks, we're building something together. The other person enjoys all of that while holding onto the projection of, I never promised you anything. That is where ambiguity stops being casual and starts becoming useful. Because when clarity would cost someone access, comfort, or control, they may have no incentive to ask for it. So today we're looking at what happens when the affection feels mutual, but the expectations stay off the books. You didn't want to have that conversation because if you knew just based on life experience that somebody could potentially catch feelings or whatever, but then you also didn't take the time to have that conversation, you're being selfish and greedy, and you're being careless with the other person's emotions. And I'd venture to say that you didn't particularly care for that person. You liked what they gave you, but not that person. Sometimes the problem isn't that nobody said what the relationship was. It's that both people were allowed to keep taking from it as if they understood it in the same way. One person hears daily calls, intimacy, emotional support, consistency, and thinks, we're building something together. The other person enjoys all of that while holding onto the projection of, I never promised you anything. That is where ambiguity stops being casual and starts becoming useful. Because when clarity would cost someone access, comfort, or control, they may have no incentive to ask for it. So today we're looking at what happens when the affection feels mutual, but the expectations stay off the books.
So we start with culture and we start with the ick. Are you familiar with what the ick is?
For me, it's something that someone does. It could just be a part of their life, just their being, that immediately turns me off.
Okay, all right. So the internet defines the ick as an abrupt loss of attraction caused by something small. Sometimes it's superficial. Sometimes it's when one awkward moment begins to be treated like a complete personality assessment. But often the small behavior is not the entire problem. It changes what the other person predicts about the future. So he said he would make the reservation, but arrives asking where they should go. She said she would call after his interview, but spends the evening posting online and never checks in. He is charming with her, but dismissive toward the server. She apologizes for being late, then arrives late the next 5,000 times. The moment may be small. The forecast it creates is not. The attraction changes because the person is no longer reacting only to what happened. They are imagining repeatedly living with that behavior. And so why does that matter? Because people often believe attraction disappears for irrational reasons. But attraction is partly a belief about the future. Can I trust this person? Can I relax around this person? Does this person just bring constant drama? Will I have to remind you of something? Will I have to manage the plans, the emotions, the calendar, and the consequences? The danger is turning one imperfect moment into a permanent verdict. So the question I have for you, Ms. Lynn, when does the ick become shallow judgment? And when is it in your nervous system recognizing a future pattern?
I think it's personal, and so I don't think it's shallow because, like, you know, I suffer from misophonia. I can't stand the sound of chewing. I just want to jump out of a car or pour the soup on their head. I can't stand it. It was so bad that I couldn't take the kids to school in the mornings. Their dad had to take them, but they were always late because I'm me, and they were eating in the car and I just couldn't take it. I don't like the sound of eating, chewing, and in some people's case, they're breathing. I just don't understand why they have to continue doing it. And so I don't think that it's shallow. One person's shallow is another person's, I can't take this anymore. I think it's all relative. Another thing for me is I don't like showboaters. If someone starts to talk about how much money they have, how, their labels, their whatever, I'm just like, okay, so this isn't gonna work for us. It's kind of a miracle that you and I are friends, because I remember meeting you immediately. I was like, ew, ick. And it was the ick factor because it was my housekeeper. I don't know how many times you mentioned your housekeeper in the initial intro call. Oh, my housekeeper's downstairs. We've got to get my dogs. Oh, I live here. And I remember sending a text message to my best friend. And at that time I was going through a divorce, and you and my ex-husband share the same first name. I said, oh God, I've got one at home and one at work. Typically it would have been like, I just can't. And I will say that there are still moments where I'm just shocked that you are in my life. Like, I don't understand how it continues to happen, because there's so much ick. In most circumstances, it would have been like, I just don't know. I've met people before for dates or whatever, and anytime it starts off with, oh, I make this much money, or I'm this, and oh, look at my house, and blah, 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 and I'm just like, bah, 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 bah. So to answer your question, I think it's personal, and I don't think that you can say it's shallow at all.
That's a lot of misinformation and a lot of just downright untruths. I'll use that kind of word.
I can only do it from my perspective. That's the way I received your
perspective. So first and foremost, anyone who knows me knows that I am not a showboater. Typically, I don't walk around talking about what it is that I own and where it is that I live. That's not important to me. However,
could have been because you were so enamored with just my presence.
Oh.
Look at my Louis Vuitton bag, ba 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 ba, cha cha cha, and I was like, whoa.
First of all, if you saw a Louis Vuitton bag, it's because I was traveling, and that was a gift.
Right, and so we've heard this story before, and so again, it's going to be personal, and that's the way I receive it.
So when you talk about icks, I think the biggest ick for most people is time and time management. If I set a meeting time and you show up 5 minutes late, you're late. And it was interesting that you talked about food, because anyone who's been in your presence eating knows that you're not smooth either.
There's a difference between hearing someone eat soup, like why do I have to, and wearing the soup. I've never said that I am a clean eater. So
your ick is people that eat loudly, but you can eat and have food all over you, and that shouldn't be an ick.
It can, maybe there's plenty of things that I do that I am sure people would find icky. Okay. I mean, last year it was my voice. You got so many DMs about the sound of my voice. Ick. I'm sure they probably still feel that way. They're probably not listening. And then, I mean, if I was dating someone and we stayed at a hotel, they would be like, my God, you've got a lot of stuff all over this hotel. Ick.
Are you a spreader outer?
I am. I like to I usually get 2 beds when I go travel, one for all my stuff and then one for me. Jesus. And so, yeah, there's plenty of things that somebody would think was icky about me, but it's personal for them. I've had people that love the sound of my voice, and there are people that can't stand the sound of it. There are people that celebrate my crazy, and other people are like, I can't take it. So I think it's personal, and you can't universally say what's an ick because it's relative to that person.
Well, I think the question is, when is an ick a shallow judgment versus a pattern?
How can it be?
Well, you mean
what do you mean a pattern? Like if I don't like the sound of your eating,
hold
that's
on.
not a pattern.
A pattern is, yes, if you don't like the sound of someone's eating, or for instance, there are people that I don't like to go to the movies with. They're friends that I don't like to go to the movies with because they will talk during the movie.
Another thing, ick with me, because I'm like, now what happened? Who are these? I told you my youngest son is like, shut your pie hole. Like, who are these people? What happened? Like, what happened like with Spider-Man? Now what is the current? And he's like, I want to sit next to Nana. I don't want to.
So there's some people that grunt. I have friends that will grunt during a movie. And I'm like, the entire time they're making noises, and I'm looking like, can we just watch the movie? So I understand that for those individuals, I can't go to the movies with them because they're going to upset me when I'm watching a movie. And there's some individuals, if you're at the movies, and let's say that you have snacks that you like. Everyone has a routine.
Please don't eat the snack next to me. It's just the sound of you eating that snack.
Right. People have routines. So there are people that when they go to the movies, their routine, their ick could be I am taking my snacks to the movie as opposed to purchasing snacks at the movie.
Johnny, I tell you the
I'm a
story.
big proponent of purchasing at the movie. I don't like to be with individuals that take their snacks to the movie. You're just denigrating the experience.
I'm telling you, like every day, not every day, but a lot of days I wake up, I'm like, how is he in my life? Like, we're so completely, like, it makes no sense. It defies nature.
So
I
we
always
wouldn't go to the
take snacks. Let me tell you the story. So I put the snacks in my purse, and I've always done this since the boys were little. Do you want nerds? Do you want whatever? And I always put their snacks in my purse. And sometimes I do it because I don't like the amount of sugar that's there, and so I will bring like their sugar-free juices or whatever it is. But whatever, I just like bringing my own snacks. And so my son goes on his first date, and I said, well, you got everything. He said, well, I went to Target and I got some snacks. I told her to put them in her purse. And I said, oh, sweet Jesus, I have failed you. I said, you can't, honey, no, you can't do that. Like when you go to take someone to the movie theater, you can't ask them to put it in their purse unless you know them, right? And so you buy everything. For me, I feel like the snacks also are stale, and I don't like to eat out of a cardboard box like this.
No, the snacks aren't stale.
I don't like the candy out of a cardboard box. I don't feel like it's fresh. I like it out of a bag. And so eating out of a cardboard box, that messes up the experience for me because I'm just like,
okay. So we've established that you have a ton of X.
So let me tell you, you talked about patterns. I'll say this. A pattern would be for me treating people poorly. And I think I've mentioned this at least to you before. If we're out and you treat let's say the wait staff poorly, you don't say thank you when they put the water down. And so I can excuse it if we're in the middle of a conversation and you just didn't. I mean, I still interrupt the conversation and tell them thank you, but whatever. I can excuse it once, but if there's a pattern and you keep doing it like that and acting like they're not invisible, I'm done with you.
Yeah, I think you just triggered something that reminded me of something you said earlier. I think a big egg for you, if I remember correctly, was, I know in my family, a big thing is opening the door. And for you, I think it was putting the toilet seat down. So receipt number 2, which I know you are a huge fan of, situationships. A situationship is not merely a relationship without a label. It is intimacy operating without an agreed upon accounting system. No title means fewer explicit promises. Fewer explicit promises mean less clarity about what counts as a violation. Both people may be making emotional deposits, but neither person has clearly established what the deposits are supposed to purchase. So one person believes that Friday nights, daily calls, physical intimacy, and emotional support are building toward commitment. The other believes that simply enjoying the present moment. The ledger exists. It has just been kept off the books. So when one person is building a relationship and the other person is maintaining plausible deniability, when it ends, the hurt person says, I know they were never technically promised anything. That sentence is not evidence that an agreement did not exist. It is evidence that the agreement was never made visible enough to enforce. So why does this matter? Because we're in a society or in this stage right now where ambiguity is capital. Ambiguity means that you do not or you are not eliminating expectations, but you are privatizing some conversations, meaning that the person who wants that information is sort of kept guessing about what it is and how it is that that person is coming to them with respect to the situationship, or what it is and how it is that they may be viewed or valued in an individual's life. So the question I have for you is this: are situationships genuinely lower pressure relationships, or do they simply force one person to privately carry the cost of expectations that no one will name? And before you do that, how many situationships have you been in?
Probably 50.
Okay, so
I found 50 ways to leave my lover. Anyway.
Now, so with situationships, now the situationships required some form of intimacy.
Yeah, they do. And so I think that it's...
So you're telling you say, are you admitting that you slept with 50 men?
We're not going to be talking about my body count again. Like, if you want to talk about a body count, do your own. Any rate, I think that it depends, right? I always thought it was a thing for men. Like that it always benefited men, especially if they were players. And they were like, well, we were just in a situation. But I've come to find out that women also benefit and enjoy such things. If you have a conversation up front, which a lot of times people don't want to do that because they either have this fantasy that if they don't name it, then it can evolve into something else. But if they don't name it, the other person doesn't even have your expectations, so they're continuing to operate under their definition. I think it's important to, at the beginning, on the onset, just have a relationship plan. Like, this is what I want out of it. This is what I would, what you want out of it. And then making sure that you're checking in to make sure that no one's developed any deep feelings or whatever it is. And, this is what we do. Are we exclusive? Are we not exclusive? So I think having the conversation, as uncomfortable as it seems and as unromantic and in the moment that it is, I think that down the line, it can help mitigate any types of hurt feelings or emotional distress that people can get in. And then no one's carrying it. But if you don't have that, I still think that one person could potentially develop feelings. And it's not because it wasn't named, it's because of the behavior of that person.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say that they're behaving like I'm in love, but they're not, because they were like, I never said that to you. But you're doing all of the things that rom-com labeled as in love. And then you are just operating and living your life like, oh my God, he's in love with me. And then he runs off with Becky.
Hold on. Is it rom-com or is it you? Meaning you, the person, because you've established this is what this means. This is what a relationship means to me. And if a relationship means this to me, and you're doing these things that check off the relationship box, then I'm seeing it as a relationship versus a situationship. And a situationship is a form of a relationship, clearly.
I don't think so. But
I think it is. You can't have, it is.
Well, you know what? That's not right, because any type of engagement, friendship, whatever, is a relationship. Everything's a relationship. So you're right in that aspect. I was thinking more of a committed relationship, and I do not believe that. But I think
that, you don't think situationships need to have guardrails?
They 100% need to have guardrails. 100. That's what I was saying, that on the onset, having those conversations and setting those guidelines and boundaries. And when you ask the question, if that's just me or if it's rom-coms, I think that there are a lot of inputs that shape a person's definitions, views, whatever. And so rom-coms could be an input. It doesn't mean that it's the Bible of definitions, but it could be an input that makes me feel this way. It could be my parents. It could be people that I've seen. It could be a lot of different things that are inputs that help me form a definition of what, like, in love or a relationship or whatever it is. And so based on my paradigms, I think that it's in love doing these behaviors, but that doesn't mean that that other person had those same experiences, so their definition is completely different. It's important to have those conversations.
Yeah, I would say this. When I think about situationships, and I travel back to high school wasn't a situationship era. College did lend itself to situationships. And then earlier in your career, as you're starting to navigate your professional career in your early 20s or whatever, late 20s, early 30s, those situationships exist. And that's probably the prime time to get in situationships. And I would venture to say that a lot of the relationships, marriages, and things of that sort started out as situationships that then evolved because someone did catch feelings. And you're like, I really like being with this person. I like spending time with this person. Think about your relationships. You go back and look at all of the 50 shades of gray that you went through and all of the situationships that you had with the football team and the basketball team. How many of them clear relationships that were defined that you guys were going to be exclusive? Or were all of your situationships hit it and quit it and I'll see you around?
Okay, so I was being facetious, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm a very jealous person. I'm a Scorpio. I don't like to share my desserts, so I'm not sharing anything else that starts with a D. So I'm not doing that. Wow. I don't like it. And I'm not going to apologize for it. That's just who I am. Okay. So having a relationship that is not exclusive or where I come second, that is absolutely not going to be a thing for me. I'm never going to be second. So I either am first or adios, amigo, because I know who I am. I know what my boundaries are. I know what kind of person I am. Some people can navigate that and they can just have like, whatever, we see each other, everybody's just fluid and doing whatnot, so forth. I'm not that person, and I know I'm not that person. And so getting into something like that is just going to lead to tragedy for everybody. Emotional tragedy, I hate you, and whatever.
Yeah. When I think about the situationships that I've been involved with, were expectations defined clearly in most of them? Probably not to the degree that they should have been. Some of them ended probably messier than they probably should have. But I think when you think about what you talked about in terms of setting expectations and hopefully individuals not catching feelings, but it's been my experience that eventually that does happen and you do have individuals that may catch feelings, or an ideal situation, people just decide, you know what, this has run its course and we're no longer compatible in that way, or let's keep it on the friendship level.
I hope that would be it. And for you to say that you believe that most people will catch feelings or whatever, and then I heard you say that you didn't have those conversations like a lot of the time, I think that is just being careless with emotions. I mean, I guess I can give you a little bit of grace because you were in college and you were on the Howard campus, and apparently there's lots of beautiful women, and so you're just like smorgasbord, and I know how you love buffets, so I get that. And you knew this. I would think that it was benefiting you. And so that's why you didn't want to have that conversation, because if you knew just based on life experience that somebody could potentially catch feelings or whatever, but then you also didn't take the time to have that conversation, you're being selfish and greedy, and you're being careless with the other person's emotions. And I'd venture to say that you didn't particularly care for that person. You liked what they gave you, but not that person. Because if you did, if you cared for them, if you respected them, then you would have had the conversation, especially with your thinking that maybe they will catch feelings. So it's hypothetically that you wouldn't have cared about the person. You cared more about yourself and what you were getting rather than the person.
Yeah, obviously the term situationship became mainstream with Jada Pinkett Smith and the situationship that she got involved with her son's friend, and how that became a thing.
Yeah, no, another thing to be conscious of, STIs are so high in retirement communities because people do have that. They're just like, I can't have a baby. Well, you can still get a whatnot. So said there's nothing in this world that's free.
And that leaves us to culture receipt number 3, and that's the group chat. Every group chat has an unofficial ranking system. Nobody announces the standings, but everyone knows who responds when Lynn comes in and something serious pops off. She's going to be the one to jump in. People remember the appointment. They check back the next day. Some people only show up for the jokes, the gossips, the birthdays, all of that stuff. But the ranking is not based on who said the most, but is based on who converted the concern into action. So, Ms. Lynn, your group chat, has the group chat made real friendship easier to recognize, or has it allowed people to mistake constant digital presence for actual reliability?
It depends on the group chat. I have my coalition of friends, and typically it's just very, very light, and you're just sharing a story, you're just whatever. It doesn't get very deep, but then there are times when somebody will put something in there and you're like, whoa, okay, so instead of me just scrolling through it and, just either liking it or ignoring it or whatever, then it's actionable and it requires you to do something. Well, it could be just a small comment or whatever, and you're just like, okay, so this is something different. And either that necessitates a call or a one-off text just to them. Hey, what's going on?
I'm a part of several men's groups. And so one of the things that we do, we meet at least once every other month and have lunch. There are 10 to 15 of us in the group, various stages of life, various stages in terms of family, various ethnicities, and things of that sort. We do fundraisers, we do different things that all of us take pleasure in with respect to fellowshipping and helping. So last night, one of my friends in the group sent out a text, and his text was, hey, if you guys get an opportunity, you may want to check out this place. Susan and I, his wife Susan, made reservations to go to this place at 9:30. Great music. And he said, name, and he said, the Velvet Room. So I'm looking at the text and I said, Okay. So I responded to the text and I said, Sean, the Velvet Room and Velvet Heaven, I'm pretty sure are swingers clubs. The Velvet Note is the place that you were talking about going to listen to music. So it's not the same. I mean, you can have great experiences, I'm sure, in both of them, you and your wife. But one is a jazz club. The other is a club, but it's not jazz, or maybe some jizz, but it's not jazz. So I say the group chat can be a place where individuals can have a lot of lively fun. Because I know Miss Lynn loves to talk about all things jazz, jizz, and adult entertainment in your group chats.
I don't know what goes on in the dancing household, but none of that's going on over here.
Okay. All right. So again, culture, the important thing is to make certain that A, you're being transparent with the conversations, and B, understanding how it is that those conversations may be impacting and may be received with respect to the individuals that you're having them with. So what's the point? Ambiguity is not neutral. When two people share intimacy, emotional support, access, time, consistency, a relationship is being built whether anybody names it or not. There's always a ledger. The only question is whether both people can see what is being deposited, what those deposits are supposed to mean, and who's carrying the risk when the expectations remain off the books. Because clarity creates accountability. Once the relationship is named, people can ask real questions. Are we exclusive? What are we building? What do we owe each other? Who is responsible for the planning, the emotional maintenance, the calendar, and the consequences when something falls apart? Without that clarity, one person may enjoy all the benefits while the other person quietly absorbs all the uncertainty. And that uncertainty has a cost. It costs time, emotional capacity. It affects decisions, schedules, priorities, and sometimes the other opportunities that a person is willing to pursue. That is why I never promised you anything is not always an innocent defense. Sometimes it's the escape clause used by someone who accepted relationship level benefits while preserving situationship level responsibility. So here's the 30-day test. For the next 30 days, pay attention to who remembers, who follows up, who makes the plans, who repairs the tension, who asks the difficult questions, and who gets to enjoy the relationship without carrying any of the administrative. Do not listen to what people say the relationship is. Watch how the work is distributed, because that distribution reveals the real balance sheet. In the main episode, every relationship has a balance sheet. We break down the invisible infrastructure and the hidden ledger that determines who is quietly financing the relationship with their time, attention, planning, and emotional labor. The relationship may feel mutual. The ledger will tell you whether it actually is. And that's while you're out and about this week, make the time to do something nice for yourself. And while you're at it, take the time to do something nice for someone else. Until next time, we'll talk to you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening and spending your time with us on I Take Your Point. For more unfiltered conversations like this, click the link in the description. Huge thank you to our production team. We couldn't do this without you. Quick disclaimer, the views shared are those of the host and guest and are for informational purposes only, not professional advice. Keep building your own table, take care, and be well.